Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And this week we are doing a theme week, and it is 80s Adventure Kids Teams. So today we are doing the 1989 film, The Wizard. Here is your trivia question for today. What is the first video game that Jimmy plays in the movie? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So our film starts off in Utah, where we meet one of our main characters, Jimmy Woods. Jimmy is a nice enough kid who unfortunately witnessed his own twin sister drowning, and this caused some PTSD for him. Now, on occasion, he tends to run away from home and keeps talking about wanting to go to California. So Jimmy lives with his mother and stepfather, who are getting pretty fed up with his antics. But he also does have some other family, including two half brothers, Corey and Nick, and of course their father, Sam. Jimmy's mother and stepfather decide that they've had enough, so they're actually going to put Jimmy into an institution. When Corey finds out about this, though, he won't allow it. So he goes to break out Jimmy, and the two of them decide to head off towards California. Along the way, the two of them run into a girl named Haley, who is on her way back home to Las Vegas, Nevada, and she decides that she is going to join the two of them. Now, while waiting around and figuring out how to get to their next destination, they end up finding out that Jimmy actually has quite the knack for video games. In fact, he seems to be quite the wizard. Haley is then the one to bring up that if they're heading to California anyway, maybe they should enter Jimmy into the Video Armageddon, where the winner can get $50,000. So the three of them then head off towards the video game tournament. Now, the three of them won't be the only ones making this journey, as Jimmy's mother has hired a private investigator, Mr. Putnam, to go chase after them. Also, Sam and Nick are also trying to find the boys as well. So, will the kids manage to get to the tournament, or will Mr. Putnam catch them all first? This movie is directed by Todd Holland. The movie was originally pitched to Universal Studios as Karate Kid but with video games. And then because Universal wanted Nintendo so involved with it, it was pitched to Nintendo as Tommy but for a younger audience. It definitely was a good thing then that apparently Universal and Nintendo managed to patch things up, because back in 1982, Universal Studios actually sued Nintendo as they believed that Donkey Kong was a copyright issue with their character of King Kong. Fred Savage was brought in as the main character of this film due to the highly successful television series The Wonder Years that had started the year before. The character of Jimmy, played by Luke Edwards, not only was dealing with PTSD, but also autism. Now, the filmmakers decided not to outright say this in the movie, as Rain Man had just come out the year prior. Beau Bridges and Christian Slater admit that before the production, they had no interest in video games, but while playing them during the filming, they actually became huge fans of them. Also, something interesting involving Christian Slater, within a 1 year span, he actually played the son of both Jeff Bridges and Beau Bridges. He played Jeff Bridges' son in Tucker, the Man in His Dreams, and Beau Bridges' son in this film. A young Tobey Maguire actually makes his first feature film debut in this movie as one of Lucas's friends. Also, a young Dante Bosco was originally in the film, but the scene that he was in got cut. Some participating theaters actually distributed issues of Pocket Power at the release of The Wizard. This was just a tiny version of the Nintendo Power magazine. The original plan was actually to have the movie reveal Super Mario Bros. 3, the video game, but Nintendo decided to release it before the movie came out. Sales for the Nintendo Power Glove blew up due to this movie. Unfortunately, the Power Glove was a piece of trash. The Nintendo video games that are shown throughout the film are Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario Bros. 2, Double Dragon, Ninja Gaiden, Rad Racer, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mega Man 2, RC Pro Am, F1 Dream, Contra, Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, and China Gate. All of the video game footage seen throughout the film was pre-recorded. None of it is the actual actors playing. The Dinosaur Tourist Trap was in actuality a real-life attraction connected to the Wheel-In restaurant in Cabazon, California. They actually used the same location in the film Pee-wee's Big Adventure a few years earlier. Speaking of Pee-wee Herman, do you remember that in the film, the tour guide at Universal Studios mentions that a movie is getting made called Mayhem in Monte Carlo, starring Zsa Zsa Gabor and Paul Rubens as Pee Wee Herman, and supposedly they would be romantic leads. this movie was never actually planned to be made and never existed. Speaking of other movies, though, the rig that truck driver Spanky is driving may look kind of familiar to you. In fact, they didn't even try to hide it. On the side of the truck, it says Hawk Hauling. This is actually the exact same truck used in the Sylvester Stallone movie Over the Top. So, when it comes to the film The Wizard, even though this movie was a big part of my childhood, watching it again nowadays, I can definitely see it wasn't that great of a movie. It's still very much entertaining, but it's more than anything a giant Nintendo commercial. So, I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 5. Now, if you did enjoy this movie, other movies I would recommend checking out would be 8-Bit Christmas, Josh and Sam, The Fundamentals of Caring, and Cloak and Dagger. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, what is the first video game that Jimmy plays in the movie? So, even though there were a ton of video games showcased throughout the film, the one that Jimmy first picks up and does very well at is Double Dragon. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.